Okay, hi everyone. My name is Lauren Vines and I am the district mental health counselor and secondary social worker. So I focus on grades 7 through 12. And I have with me Jenna Harrington, and I'll let her introduce herself.
I'm Jenna Harrington, and I am the social worker at all of the elementary schools as well as the intermediate. So I serve the population of pre-K through sixth grade.
Okay. All right, so this Parenting Bears series number 4 is going to focus on managing depression and tips for success. So before I continue, I want to let you know that I am not a physician and I cannot diagnose depression. But all the information that I provide you tonight is evidence-based information, and so it's been researched, and these are things that therapists and LPCs and social workers use to help students succeed both in and out of school. So let's go ahead and get started. So again, Lauren Vines, mental health counselor, secondary social worker. That is my contact information and my email address. So if you would like, you are free to take a picture and contact me at any point. And later on in the presentation, we'll have Jenna's information as well. So I'll give y'all just a few minutes. Okay. All right, so what is depression? I'm sure all of us kind of have this question every now and then, so let's get into it. All right, so it's a medical term that describes a specific disorder of the brain. So depression is more than just feelings of sadness or depressed mood, which all of us, of course, have experienced at some time. So depression is also called major depressive disorder, or MDD. That's what we call it as mental health professionals. It's a sustained depressed mood, feelings of sadness, loss of interest or pleasure in most activities. It's a sense of worthlessness, guilt, difficulty concentrating, thinking, and making decisions. Those are just some of the symptoms associated with depression. Frequently, and especially in children and teenagers, these psychological symptoms are accompanied typically with physical symptoms. So that can include agitation, that can include fatigue, maybe some changes in sleep pattern, appetite, and that just doesn't include like a decrease in appetite. That can also include eating more and an increase in appetite. That would be a symptom of depression. It can also include slow movement and slow speech. So, it's kind of just walking slow, talking slow, just kind of not in your typical, you're not exhibiting that typical behavior that you do. But additionally, it causes, it can cause headaches. It can cause stomach aches. It can cause, let me just add this person. It can cause aches and pains. Some depressions are mild, but then of course other ones are more severe. And that limits daily activities, which leads to thoughts of suicide and attempts at suicide and even self-harm for that matter. Additionally, we have those cognitive symptoms. So if your student is having, those feelings of sadness and maybe they joined band and they're no longer wanting to do band or no longer enjoying going to practice or engaging in the UIL competitions or marching band. They may have difficulty in school. So maybe that difficulty in paying attention and of course, even that drop in grades. So if your student was making straight A's and all of a sudden they're not wanting to engage in class, they're not wanting to go in school, maybe they're failing a lot of classes, that would make you want to, that would warrant you to ask more questions and even speak with your physician. Again, this is not all of the symptoms of depression, but I will say that these are symptoms when I do a depression screening with my kids, these are the symptoms that are on the screening tool, which is the same screening tool that physicians and hospitals and private practice therapists use to determine whether or not that student is experiencing what could potentially be a diagnosis of depression. Does anybody have any questions on these symptoms so far? No? Okay. Okay, so for parents, trust your instinct. It's normal for parents who think that their child is suffering from depression to wonder if they should just wait, and maybe it's just this moment of time, or maybe they're just going through something, or whether they should, of course, seek some help. So, children and teens, they oftentimes hide their feelings from their parents. Whether we have an open relationship with our parents or not, or with our kids, they're going to hide things from us, and that's normal teenage behavior. But again, if we go back to they're not talking to us and then they're experiencing these symptoms and we've got to drop in grades, they're not going to class, again, that's going to warrant you some more questions. If you think something is going on with your child, trust your instinct. You're the parent, you're the expert in your child. I can see your child on the weekly, but you know what? I'm going to call you and I'm going to ask for your advice and your feedback because you're the expert and you know him or her. And that's what's going to make the difference. And that's what's going to make that student succeed. The bottom line is don't hesitate. And it's better to err on that side of caution than to watch that student increasingly become depressed. Your first phone call, and always your first phone call, is going to be to your student's primary care physician. That physician is going to determine the next best steps, whether that's they need private counseling, maybe that's they need to be hospitalized, anything like that. They're going to make sure that they're going to know what to do with your kid. But more importantly, and I always say this, and anytime I speak with parents or talk to parents or any students, we want to make sure that there are no medical issues that is causing this behavior. I know when Jen and I took our licensing exam, that's one of the biggest things is you want to refer that student to your primary care physician to make sure that there are no medical issues arising that can cause that student to feel depressed or have those feelings of sadness. I will tell you that there are some illnesses like even diabetes and thyroid disease that can act like depression. And of course, that needs to be ruled out before any other type of therapy or any other intervention.
Lauren, if I can add also that, kind of going on the same path as different diagnosis, medical diagnosis that somebody might have, even in adults, not just youth, but some of these medications that are taken for medical reasons, some of the symptoms, side effects from the medications are depression or depressive symptoms. So that's another good reason why you want to go through your primary care physician first and foremost, just so that we're not trying to overly medicate anybody here.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things for anybody who's on here or anybody who watches us who is experiencing depression in their household, and that student or adult, no matter what the case may be, is prescribed any type of medication, because again, it's a sustained depressed mood. It's not I broke up with my boyfriend, girlfriend, or I'm having this really difficult time in math class and I'm just really feeling sad. It's a sustained mood. So it can build, of course, and it is like a roller coaster. But one of the biggest things I educate my kids is to don't stop that medication until you speak with your doctor. That's going to be very, very important. If that student or even an adult is prescribed any type of medication to help with their behavior or their mood. Thank you, Jenna. Okay, so is this an emergency? If your child is in an imminent danger of hurting themselves or another person, if they're hearing voices or seeing things that they can't explain or that someone else can't see or hear, they need to be evaluated as quickly as possible. And in those moments, you can call 911 or you can even take them to the local emergency room. I know for teenagers, I know oftentimes parents want to take to Cooks. That is perfectly fine, and you can go to Cooks. I think that's a great opportunity. Some parents are like, no, my child's too old, but I'm always for Cooks. They do a great job at evaluating their kids and referring the parents to the next appropriate resource. So please, if your child is experiencing any of these, call 911 or take them to the hospital first. That's going to be most important. Okay, so here, and you are free to take a picture of this. And of course, Ms. Coyle will put this on the district website. These are local mental health resources. You have the National Suicide Prevention Line. You can call or chat that. A student can call or chat that if they are in crises. that will immediately direct them to a crisis interventionist, and they will send someone to whatever location they are at to do an evaluation. Another one that's not listed on here, I don't believe, is MHMR. MHMR of Tarrant County has a crisis line. And again, same thing. They will come to wherever that child is at or wherever that parent is at, and we'll do an evaluation, and they will escort or make the appropriate resources at that time. And I can provide you that number. It's just 817-335-3022, and it is the crisis line, and they'll immediately start asking questions related to suicide. Again, it's 817-335-3022. SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, is the government website. They're going to have all of your local hospitalizations. They're going to have all your therapy, private practices that will assist anybody with substance use or mental health related issues. You also have the National Institute of Mental Health. That's going to provide you more evidence-based and information related to diagnoses. And for our LGBTQ youth, we also have the Trevor Project. Their goal in the Trevor Project is to prevent suicide in LGBTQ. And so the student or an adult can call that number at any point. I will say that I was just made aware of an additional resource. I do not have their number, but they are located here in the North Texas area for LGBTQ, and that's going to be the Resource Center, and that is located in Dallas, and they too are there to prevent LGBTQ suicide. I'll just leave this up for a few more minutes and take whatever pictures or information anybody might need. Okay. Let's go into the next one. So this is Jenna's information. Again, she is pre-K through 6th, and this is her office, her direct line. Anybody who has any children that are pre-K through 6 is free to call her. If she doesn't answer, leave a message and she'll return your call as soon as possible. Same goes for me. Our goal in the district is to make a systems-based approach. And that means connecting families to the appropriate resources in Tarrant County based on that need or as requested. We firmly believe, her and I both, that the more resources we can pour into a family or the student, the better the outcome is going to be. It is a team effort when we work with systems, and it's all about how we can collaborate, how can we communicate, and how can we help that child succeed, both at school and outside of school. Okay, so one of the biggest things that I'm advocating on with any of my kids that I work with, and I know Jenna will do the exact same, we have to work together. That goes back to that systems approach. Not only do I need to work with the family, because again, you are the experts on your child, I want you to also work with the district. And that means making sure that the adults who are a part of your child's life, that includes your teachers, your coaches, even tutors, maybe extracurricular activity sponsors, are aware of what's going on in the event that they need to intervene. You do not have to tell them the details, but advocate for your child. I'll advocate for my students all day long. I very much like to make sure staff give grace to kids who are struggling. And so advocate, if you're open, let teachers know, and those people know that your kid may be going through a difficult time, and we're working together to get them to succeed and to give them a little bit of grace as needed. If the right people know about your child's illness, again, not necessarily details, they can provide that support system for that student during the days at which you're not there, and that's going to be at school. These people can let you know when they see something of concern. Ask them to notify you or notify any counselor if your child is writing or talking about suicide, if they're physically harming themselves, if there's some self-harm behavior, if there's evidence of self-harm, even giving away any type of possessions. And that's one of the risk factors for suicide is giving away your belongings, big or small. If it's meaningful to them and they're giving it away, that would warrant us to ask some more questions. If they text a friend or post on Snapchat or TikTok or any other social media type website of saying goodbye, and someone happens to let somebody know, that's where we all work together to save the student and to make sure that they're getting the appropriate treatment that they need. So I'm big on advocating. So always advocate for your child. Okay, so talk with your student. I know these talks are very difficult. I know not only is it stressful for the student, but more importantly, it's stressful for the parent. And I know that sometimes with parents, there may be some guilt and shame, but please know that you did the best, you're doing the best you can, and you did nothing wrong. And so please have that open communication with your student. Let them know that you support them throughout that process, that you're able to separate those depression symptoms and that depression behavior from the real person that they are, and let them know that you'll always be there for them. These conversations, of course, can be difficult. Don't avoid the issue. It's the elephant in the room, right? And so we want to make sure that we're not avoiding that. We're asking that. We're having that open communication. That's what's going to help your child succeed. Also, and I'm big on this, talking brings you together in ways that will honestly, it'll surprise you. And it's unfortunately, even in these circumstances, having open communication with your student, whether it's depression or any type of mental health or even just behavior, that's a bonding experience. You're getting to know your kid and your kid's getting to know you. And I think that's great. Don't take anything your student is saying personally. Listen, really listen to them. And to what your child is telling you, and give support and love and positive feedback and encouragement, because sometimes when kids are feeling sad and they're feeling of hopelessness and things aren't going to get better, they need to hear that they need to hear that they're going to be okay, and they need to hear that you're there, and they need to hear that it's a process and we'll work together and we got this. And we all need positive feedback and admirations, even as adults. Okay, so research shows.
Can I
Go ahead.
ask you something, Miss
Yeah.
Lauren?
Yes, absolutely.
So with my son in 3rd grade, he's not on medication or anything like that, but I've noticed, and we are doing the virtual learning course. And I've spoken with his biological father. We're not together, obviously. But I've spoken with, we're close, the whole family, grandparents and this and that. And it's something that runs genetically. Apparent, he gets extremely bored.
Okay.
With these Zooms, and he's begged me to speak with his teacher. He likes those intervention times. Do you know what I mean?
Jenna, do you? Are specials or?
No, it's basically catching up. Like, he's not doing his work. He's really smart.
Okay.
Like, it's scary, and he knows how to work computers better than me and my husband, or my husband and my husband and
technology.
Yeah. So he knows how to mess with it and, like, do whatever. But I just don't, I've noticed he gets frustrated because he can't focus, and I don't really know how to handle that. What's your recommendation?
I still think with that concern, of course, I would talk to his doctor, and also be mindful that this year, 2021 is a crazy year. And here's the thing, as adults, even today, and I think we can all attest to this, COVID was new. COVID's a struggle for us at times. And so if we struggle, we can only imagine what our kids go through, the uncertainty, the fear, the having to do the virtual. And that in itself is a difficult process as well. I suggest talk to his doctor if there are concerns with that. But also we did a presentation on virtual learning and tips for home that you can look at and see if that's something that maybe you could incorporate into your daily routine if possible. It just gives some typical tips that help students succeed while they're virtual learning. That's posted on the district website.
Okay.
And it's the very first Parenting Bears series that we did. And so take a look at that. Again, it's just tips and techniques, and you can try a few. Make sure that he's in a well-lit, natural light type environment when he's doing his work. Make sure there's no distractions around him. You want to make sure that space is specifically designed for him. But definitely look into that. Look at those tips that we provided a couple of weeks ago. They're on the district website. And then if you still have concerns, of course, I'm going to recommend, speak with his primary care physician and pediatrician. But if you have any more questions or concerns, reach out to Jenna because she's the expert in elementary school. And
Hi, Jenna.
She can address any concerns and give you feedback and tips that she's learned throughout the year as she continues to work with kids at the younger age.
Okay.
Does that help you?
Yes, very much so. Sorry, this is my first time on here.
No, we're so glad you're here, and thank you for answering questions or asking questions. We love it.
Awesome.
Okay.
They're listening. I have to mute now. Well, thank you, ladies. I'm going to continue to listen.
You're welcome.
Oh, here we go.
Hi.
Oh, goodness. Just say bye, guys.
Talking to.
Okay, we gotta.
Okay, so encourage good physical and mental health. So depression wreaks havoc on kids' appetite. I talked about that earlier. That could either be a lack of appetite or an increase in appetite. In this case, if they are eating too much, they're probably eating the wrong foods. Maybe they're snacking, chocolate, those types of things. Help your child understand the connection between their eating habits and their mood. I will tell you that certain foods, and this is evidence-based in its research, certain foods can cause you to feel down, but like chocolate, that increases that serotonin and endorphins. That's going to make you feel a little bit happier. But at the end of the day, if it's a continuous process, that's going to decrease their mood. So make sure they're eating fruits, vegetables, apples, bananas, chicken, salad, all the healthy, nutritious foods that they can get. That's going to increase their energy level. And with depression, the wanting to lay in bed and then finding the not having pleasure in activities, we need to get them as much energy as they possibly can to continue to move forward. Make sure they eat a good breakfast. If they're coming to school, eat a well-balanced lunch. We provide well-balanced lunch at the school. And of course, if they need snacks throughout the day, if they're experiencing some level of anxiety and they need to kind of distract their brain, give them a healthy snack that they can take with lunch or whatnot. That would be a great opportunity as well. Sleep is so very important for depression. I know that they may be sleeping too much, or maybe they're not sleeping at all, but set that sleep routine every night. I would encourage you, for those who have kids who like social media or have cell phones, make sure you turn those cell phones off at least an hour before their bedtime, because that blue light and those things that they're looking or watching or whatnot, their brain is still working even after their phone is turned off. So make it a habit and make it a routine where, they turn their phone off an hour before bed. They need at least 9 hours of sleep. That is the recommendation from providers at this time for children and teens. Make sure it's a cool, dark, and relaxing place. Some people do good with the white noise machines. Some people do good with rain sounds. And you can find those little machines on Amazon, and I don't think they're that expensive, but that may help your students sleep better and more of that deep sleep. Exercise releases those endorphins. That's going to help your child's mood. So regular exercise is just as effective as any type of medication for cases of mild to moderate depression. It's not the full treatment, but it can be just as effective. So as a general rule, make sure your child is getting at least 30 minutes of exercise or 30 minutes a day. You know, if they walk, make sure they walk around the block. You know, they can bike to school if that's the case. They can take the dog out. They can run around the neighborhood. That's going to be great for your student who experiences any type of depression. Although there are some strong mental health benefits to eating right, exercising, and good sleep, these practices alone don't substitute for professional treatment if your student is struggling with depression. And again, these are just tips, and always reach out to your provider.
Lauren, can I add something really quick?
Absolutely.
Okay, so one of the things that I see a lot of times with the students that I work with on the elementary level and intermediate, they come to school and they have not eaten breakfast. This is going to be huge for their mood throughout the day. And so a lot of times, I mean, if you think about it, when you're hungry, you're not in the best of moods, are you? You've heard that term hangry before. And so a lot of these kids will come to school, and even though there's breakfast provided, a lot of them are not hungry whenever they first wake up. And I totally understand that, but you're going to have to like strongly encourage them to eat some sort of protein in the morning, because if their mood starts to dip, they're going to have those depressive symptoms. And just a tip for like virtual learners, and this is just something that I do whenever I'm working at home or something of that nature. When I finish a task, I get up and go do an activity in the home. So whether I'm doing like a load of laundry or just getting up and walking around the house or going to the mailbox and back. And so that's just a good tip for virtual learners that are sitting in front of their computers, just getting up and getting that physical activity instead of sitting at a desk all day long.
Okay, so the next one, the student's social life. So if your student at any age, and even adults, we can attest to this, they may start to separate from their friends. It's common for someone who's depressed to have a low self-worth and lack of self-confidence in themselves. Your child may believe that his or her friends don't like them. And they start that negative self-talk in their brain. And I'll tell you, that's something I work on solely with my kids, is stopping that negative self-talk. Because when we have one thought that's negative, that negative thought will roll over to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in a matter of 30 minutes. And so you want to make sure that that negative self-talk is stopped. Remind your child that that's the depression speaking, and that it's not your friends, and that he or she is perceiving things that aren't necessarily true. That goes back to that positive reinforcement, that positive encouragement. Your child's friends, if they know that he or she is struggling and he or she is starting to separate, they may separate as well. And so that can be a lonely time for your child. And so that's the time where you open up that communication and you provide that support, because you know, as district employees, you know, we can provide support at school, but you guys are their support. You are their parents, and you're going to make the difference in the student's success. Okay, so school. Again, I mentioned earlier that cognitive changes like a drop in grades, maybe the loss of the ability to focus in class or concentrate, are symptoms of depression. And most of the time, those are the first ones that appear. So if you start to see a drop in grades or the inability to focus or concentrate, that may be the first symptom that starts to appear in children and teens. So in addition to that, they may feel hopeless. They may be struggling with fatigue. That goes back to that importance of making sure there's a sleep routine. And you may find yourself as a parent spending quite a bit of time monitoring those activities, monitoring their grades, monitoring those the aspect of school. So check into time again with the teachers, the coaches, and try to find some trouble solving solutions. again, I'm big on this, advocate for your child, especially in times like this where it's really difficult. And so I think that's important. And I think that I had to reiterate that because I'm very keen on that. Okay, so for parents, take care of yourself. You are only an effective parent if you're able to model that self-care. Talk to your family, talk to your friends, join a support group, and engage in that self-care, even if that's 10 minutes of I'm gonna sit in my room and eat a Twizzlers or a Snickers. Take it, and that's okay. You're modeling that self-care is important. And when we're modeling that behavior for our kids will engage in it. And our kids have to take care of themselves. They have to have that self-care. They have to engage in those coping skills and eat healthy and have that exercise. So always take care of yourself first. Okay. And it's a journey. Depression is a journey. Recovery does not happen overnight. If a child is experiencing depression, it's not going to change tomorrow. Therapy, interventions, those types of things, it's a journey. So you're going to have setbacks. But those are the times where you remain calm, you engage in that self-care, you model that behavior of it's going to be okay and we're going to get through this. Be patient with yourself. Be consistent in how you react to your student, and more importantly, forgive yourself, forgive the situation, and you keep moving forward, because I have met some pretty amazing parents in my time here at the district, and y'all are all doing a great job. Okay, so lastly, stay connected, ask questions, make sure that you are reaching out to your teacher with any issues, comments, or concerns. Of course, you always have me or Jenna. This is the most important thing. We have to work as a team to help our kids succeed. Make sure all your information, your contact information, cell phone number, that is updated on the registration paperwork and in Skyward. Ms. Coyle does a fantastic job at letting you all of the district know about events planned and those types of things. So make sure you're on Skylert and you're receiving those messages. Make sure you're following our Facebook page. We'll post these on Facebook as well. And then of course, everything is listed on our district website. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.